Bonsoir tout le monde, comment ça va? Je suis bien content que vous soyez ici. Oh, English, huh? All right, so I'm Marc Tessier, and as all can probably tell, I'm not from down here. I'm from up yonder. I'm a French-Canadian from Montreal. I'm a network engineer. I used to install wireless in hotels across North America, and that's gruesome. It's flying 45 weeks a year, Monday to Friday, hoping to get home on Friday. And I'm the T of S&T GeoTronics. I'm Marc Tessier. My partner, James Sanderson, that couldn't be here tonight, is also my neighbor. And he's been my business partner since 2013, where we were doing geocaching adventures and working on that. And we came up with some escape room props, and we did an electric car conversion. But I'm here to talk about our latest product, our latest Kickstarter. So what we're going to do is we're going to launch the Kickstarter immediately. Okay, that's going to take just a few seconds. So it will run during the evening, and we'll see what happens there. And then I'll tell you the story from the beginning, starting with the Enigma through the DSKY to the third installment of our Kickstarter campaign. So Mathieu, if you want to hit the launch now, accept all these terms, and then it should become live. Okay, so we're going to want to track that 0 at the bottom there, see if it changes during the night. And at some point later, Mathieu will use my favorite tool to monitor a Kickstarter campaign, which is KickTrack. So KickTrack is a daily review of your progress and in number of comments and number of pledges and the amount, and as predictability engine that gives you a good idea of what's going to happen with your campaign. So tip number 1, KickTrack once you launch. Okay, so let's start in the summer of 2013 at the Franklin Delano Roosevelt State Park here south of here in Georgia was a geocaching mega event, and they're doing it every year in Georgia still, and we wanted to play a game during that. So we build Arduino, all sorts of Arduino toys, and we wanted to play a game and have people find encrypted codes and then a key somewhere, right, an encrypted key. And then at the end of their geocaching run, they arrive at an Enigma and they solve the puzzle. So at the time, I didn't know what key, what language, what device could I use for encoding. I'm not a crypto person. So I asked, and a friend of mine immediately suggested, well, why don't you use an Enigma? Well, I didn't know what an Enigma was. So he told me the story, the Germans, 1940, World War II, and sending secret messages to each other. And the British, like we've seen in the Imitation Game movie, are working hard to decipher this. So everything we do is open source, and so we built it, and then as we're doing it for our single purpose, we publish an instructables that tell people how they can make one themselves for free. Okay, don't just go ahead, follow us step by step, do the work, and you'll have a device just like ours. Overnight, I get 10,000 views on that Instructables. I get people from all over the world telling me it's cool, and then some people start asking if I could make one for them. Well, I don't have time for this. I'm an engineer. I'm flying to my hotels every Monday. So, and as we were building, James said jokingly, well, if I have to build another one of those, I'm going to want $1,000. So the price stuck. And I told people, sorry, go away. It'd be $1,000 if I was to make one for you. The checks start coming in, the orders, the PayPal. It's like, whoops, what did I get into? And now I'm committed. I have to make these for the people, but I don't know how many parts do I need to order? Because am I going to sell 5 of these and we're done, or is there 20? Like, how many raw materials do I get? So that's where Kickstarter comes in. We decided, let's launch a Kickstarter campaign, and that will tell us exactly how many people care, and we'll have the money up front. So then we can buy our raw materials, our tools, and what we need, and then manage on fulfilling the campaign. So it's exactly what we did. we had no idea. Well, the 10,000 views on the Instructable on the first day was a sign that maybe we hit the chord or something, right? Something unique. And no idea. So we figured, hey, a $20,000 goal on Kickstarter in 30 days. Here's our prototypes. Here's the Instructable if you want to make yourself. We thought it'd be reasonable. We finished the campaign with $60-some $3,000. We've been featured Project of the Day on Kickstarter. We've been in magazines around the world. Never expected anything like that. And I've been making Enigma machines since then. This is serial number 234. It's the 234th machine that I built. I finally decided to build one for me, and that's mine right there. So until it's not, right? And in 2018, so a client of the Enigma suggested, for your next project, why don't you build a DSKY? What is that? Well, it's Apollo Guidance Computer Display Keyboard that was used in every manned mission to the moon for the Apollo series. And we're 2018, and comes out that 2019 is the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. So let's build one. So we started in 2017, actually, because we ran the Kickstarter in 2018. And again, figure a $20,000 goal in 30 days should be reasonable. Well, this one hit us at 80-some thousand, and then it kept going through backer kit and so on to this day. We had intention of making only 100, and oh, this is not my latest one. Oh, that's an older one. And the last serial number that I made is serial 143. So we are at 143 DSKY so far. The magic is having a prototype. So very, very important. If you're going to launch a Kickstarter campaign, crowdfunding, you need to show that you actually have a proof of concept and you made prototypes enough to pass as your production item, so you can take pictures and show what it looks like. Also, you don't launch a Kickstarter campaign and not monitor it for 30 days. You keep having a look at it and look at the comments you're getting, the feedback. So it's time intensive. For the next 30 days, I'm hooked to my computer and the F5 refresh button, and then looking at the comments that come in and the feedback. So people have questions, people have suggestions. You have to have an open mind. The Enigma that we put out there did not have a plug board because we had no use for it. Very quick in the Kickstarter, they said, no, we want the real Enigma at the plug board. The plug board is important, make it work. So, okay, so we had to go back to our PCB drawing board and then make another one. And that brings us, so we discussed the campaign, we discussed 100 hours to 3D print the big DSKY. Oh, in the DSKY campaign, same thing. This is our design. We came up with that. We called it the Slim, because the real DSKY is much bigger, because it's got solid state relays in there and all sorts of bigger parts. So we figured there's no point in building a real size full one-to-one replica. It's a wasted plastic and space. Well, guess what? Immediately on Kickstarter, the backers said, no, you have to make us a full-size one-to-one replica. That's what we want to have. So I still sell half of them on the smaller format because it's less work and less plastic, but the lessons you learn from your base.
And one thing I remember you definitely saying on the first two Kickstarters is that just because you're not necessarily a customer at $1,000 for an Enigma or a DSKY does not mean that the customer base is not out there.
Exactly. So people perceive the value based on the amount of work and labor, and I couldn't afford one of my own Enigmas at $1,000. I love it, it's beautiful, but I have no use for it. It's $1,000, way out of my reach, and there's a free app for that. Plus it's open source, so build your own kind of thing. So now a customer of the DSKY and a mentor friend of ours, suggested a year and a half ago, I know what your next project should be. So he mentioned the Antikythera. Again, I don't know, what's that? Okay, and when he started describing it, I remembered seeing an article about a device, a thing this size, made out of copper and brass, all eroded and oxidized and rusted, and that looked very weird. It's got a whole bunch of gears and for 50 years, the mathematician and scientists could not really figure out what it was. It was discovered in 1901 at the bottom of the ocean by sponge divers, and they called it the Antikythera mechanism because the island where they were was the Antikythera island. So go figure. But it wasn't until 1901 that Direct de Sola Price came up with an understanding of what it could do and what it could be used for. So no, it did not come from the extraterrestrial that left it here. It wasn't invented in the future and brought back to 150 BC so they could lose it at the bottom of the ocean. It's a device that a lot of people think that Archimedes contributed or actually made it. It's probably a commission by somebody very high, very rich, a high Makatimak in Greece, and it was meant to tell you where the location of the 5 planets are, the 5 naked eye visible planets. They didn't have telescopes at the time, the rotations of the moon, the next lunar and solar eclipses, along with the location of the next Olympics, and also serve as a farmer's almanac telling you when it's the best time to plant your seeds or tend your garden kind of thing. That's the general consensus. Our belief, James and I, is the reverse. We think the ancient Greek had nothing to do at night but to watch the sky. They knew exactly where those planets were, and they could tell that's Venus, that's Mars, and so on. So they would crank the device to the location of the planets so it would tell them what day it is. All right? They didn't have a Google Calendar. The name of the days and the names of the month, there are 20, 30 different calendars out there, depending what region you were in Greece and so on. You were working on a different calendar than somebody else. So we think that you set it to where the planets are, and then it tells you what day it is, kind of thing. When we started building this, so you got to build prototypes, right? And that's the other thing that's weird. It's only one fragment has been found of this device, and it's like overnight there's a car, right? The car was made. There was never practice of cars or beginning of cars or an engine or somebody working on a transmission. It's overnight, boom, car. Well, that's not how evolution is. That's not how stuff happens. You have to make prototypes. You got to evolve. You got to iterate. You got to try and try again until you're satisfied. So the same thing as we were building this, when we started, our goal was to get one planet working and another planet, and all the time being very aware that meshing 52 gears is friction. Okay, you're going to have friction, and friction was going to be enemy number one from the get-go. So we cheated, like any maker that respects himself should. We use brass gears and brass rods. So because we got bearings, brass bearings, okay, and brass rods, now we were, and I didn't mean to say brass gears. We'll get to the brass gears later. Because we were heavily using bearings, we have actually no friction. So this thing is super easy to spin. So we did 2 models. This is the upfront model. It contains the 5 planets and the rotation of the moon and today's date. But in the back, there's no gears, no dials, nothing there. Just a nice hole so you can suspend it on the wall. The other device on your right, Mathieu, is our full Monty device. And our full Monty has the full back that predicts all of the lunar eclipses and solar eclipses, the Olympics location, and the when to plant and so on. So the top needle works on an 18-year cycle, so it takes 18 years before it makes one complete rotation. And the bottom is a 19 years. So it's a spiral, so it turns, right? And it takes 19 years before it gets from the beginning of the spiral all the way to the end of the spiral. So, because that's the calendar that the Greek figured out the planets were on. They figured if we look at it on an 18-year cycle, then everything should repeat. So the machine, after 18 years, you just lift your needle from the end, bring it back to the beginning, and then you're ready to crank it for 18 more years. What we found out in getting ready for Kickstarter is R&D is very important. You got to do some your research and development to figure out the product. First, you need a thought, right? An idea of a product. And it just turns out that if there's something that you want, there's probably somebody out there that wants it too. Okay? I needed this for my game. Turns out there's a ton of people that want it. I've shipped it to 36 different countries, my 235 units, and sold as many kits. The DSKY is the same thing. A guy wanted one, and he's not alone. I have a good feeling about this one. Our motto at S&T GeoTronics is fail fast, okay? So if you go on a path and it doesn't work, move along, okay? Fail fast, get next prototype, okay? So we make these prototypes, and once we get to a point and we've answered one question and we're having some issues or thoughts, then it's not time for another prototype. And then we get for prototype 2. And if you do enough prototype, you end up with a product that you understand, that knows, that works, and solves what you're looking for. So, and then that's called the MVP, your minimum viable product. So your minimum viable product is probably a production candidate. It's production candidate number 1, and now you got an item, you got something. Audience targeting is super important. You got to know who you are and why you are interested in this, and then market to these people. Then it's promo time. Promotion, which is what we've been doing all of this week extensively, okay? And I call this priming the pump for Kickstarter. So all of these communications that we do, including this event over here, are helping in priming the pump and are getting Kickstarter to see immediately some traction. And if I get enough traction in the next few days, then people will think that it's a winning Kickstarter and they don't want to be left behind. And also I got some early birds to help encourage people to come early and not wait 30 days. Like, let me know when the campaign's going to end, and then I'll get one, right? Well, with the early birds, you cheat that a little bit because you're getting an incentive to jump in early.
And as you keep going and you do more and more, you cultivate a list of media contacts. And those are going to be definitely important in the future. Earned media, right? Anytime you can earn a story without paying for it, and that's free advertising.
It's the best advertising there is.
You want to put your pin in the laptop?
Yes, I will. Yeah. So the first Kickstarter, so the Instructable, right? And for my Enigma Kickstarter, the Instructable launched 4 or 5 months before Kickstarter. I had no knowledge of crowdfunding. I had no plan. So. But because there wasn't battery on the power on the side. Yeah. All right, so that's at 5. Okay, I got one backer. There we go. So campaign has started.
Oh,
and we got one backer. We're gonna play that movie.
Okay.
Okay. I'll launch.
Yep.
Okay.
You got 2 now.
Now I got 2. Okay. Wow. All right. So that's pretty cool. And within 15 minutes of launching the Enigma, I immediately had one buyer, 900, the biggest, baddest Enigma I had out there. And right there, it was, oh, okay, I'm not alone, right? I'm not crazy. I'm not, there's somebody else that wants that is ready to buy one.
And one thing that definitely helped, and this was not our doing, but Indiana Jones coming out with a movie that talks nonstop about the Antikythera during our campaign. On the DSKY, it was the Apollo 50th anniversary, and before that on Enigma.
What's the imitation game? So if you can get Hollywood to spend the money and make a big buster movie for your project at the same time that you're releasing, why not?
And use your SEO and your keywords to grab as much of that traffic as you can.
So back to Matthew's point before I entered my password here. When the Instructable launched for the Enigma 4 or 5 months before the Kickstarter campaign, IEEE got notification of that and put an article. Boeing put an article. CNET put an article. Computer this put an article. And all of these created the Google algorithms to know S&T GeoTronics got Enigmas. If you want Enigmas, go see GeoTronics, right? And when I launched a Kickstarter campaign, right after Kickstarter, the movie Imitation Game came out. So I ran a Google AdWords campaign. If you want to see that movie, maybe you want to see that product. Well, guess what? If you're asking for an Indiana Jones movie for the next short while, you should be presented with one of my ads. I'm sorry, I apologize.
For over 2,000 years, the Antikythera mechanism was at the bottom of the ocean, waiting for someone to discover its mysteries. Thanks to scholars in the past century, we now have a better understanding of its origins, inner workings, and purpose. But for most of us, owning a piece of history like this is simply out of reach. Until now. Introducing Open Antikythera project, brought to you by S&T GeoTronics. Our handcrafted wooden box and laser cut gears make it possible for anyone to build their own replica. And with our English front plate interpretation, the symbols and functions of the device are more beautiful and easier to understand than ever before. Whether you're a history buff, space enthusiast, or just love the beauty of steampunk design, Open Antikythera project has something for you. And the best part, our version is always open source.
Anybody can follow my step-by-step instructions on Instructable and build their own.
All the thousands of hours of CAD that's gone into making all these individual pieces.
But it's definitely a useful tool to have to see this all come together, and it could lead to future discoveries.
We'd appreciate your support in further improving our product and bringing it to the world.
Join us on this exciting adventure on the edge of technology and history. We'll see you when the date needle hits Virgo.
All right. So as you saw in one of those pictures, it takes a few practice gears before you can do all the 52 gears that you need that work and mesh together. So all of these are all rejects that, all right, that goes to the bad pile, one more thing. And different tries, we tried different things. So we laser cut our gears. So they're all laser cut in-house in our shop. And by using Delrin, which is acetal, it's a solid material that behaves like it would be the same as if it was brass or copper kind of thing. Unfortunately, or fortunately, a few gears need to be 3D printed because they're just not 2D. So they would need to be welded, right? If 3D printer tools were not available. But since we have 12 3D printers and we use them to do our DSKY, we use Prusa printers, and I have only good things to say about a Prusa printer. We have Mark IIIs, now they have the Mark IV that came out. Anyway, so we 3D print them, and again, friction is very important to keep track and to design it until you get exactly the friction you desire. So there's a group of folks in Australia that ran a Kickstarter that ended a month ago that was for 3D printed Antikythera. And their product is very nice, can be printed on small printers, and it's more Antikythera for the world kind of thing. So, but this one is all laser cut.
And they were not selling a physical device. They were just...
Yeah, selling the files so you can make your own. So, and that's a big difference. That's a ton of work to come up with this. So,
and our files are free.
And our files are going to be in instructables. We're still cleaning up and tweaking them for packaging to put them available on the line, so people can get them instantaneously or not. And so we're finishing. You know, as the campaign runs, we'll be taking care of these, housekeeping. So, if you have any question, I'd be happy to answer them. I welcome you to come up front and test the device and see what they ask or see what they do. Ask me any question. Monsieur Tessier here, my son, is a marketing whiz. And if you look at what our Kickstarter campaign looked back in the day, was Arial bold kind of thing, and now it's got color and fonts and graphics, and very happy that he was able to help.
So my question, Mark, how much of this is your business now?
So 100%. So that's exclusively. So last year I took a side gig teaching electronics to kids after school. But if my anticipation is correct, if Indiana Jones does a good run in the theater, then I may be too busy and won't be able to do my kids after school robotics work. So that will be full time. My partner James has a full-time job, so he does this on evenings and weekends, and it works out good. He does the design, the development, the programming. This would not exist if it wasn't for James. James essentially created this, but we work together, and it's understood that once the product exists, then it's in my hands, and I need to manufacture them and get them.
Who does the woodwork of this?
So the woodwork is also James. Whether it's the Enigma or the Antikythera, or even we made a box for the DSKY, these boxes are absolutely a work of art. And by themselves, they are worth, as much as the rest of the component is, kind of thing.
I was just wondering if you could speak just a little more about why we think it was done by Archimedes. And I was going to suggest that you should reach out to Kathleen Kennedy at Lucasfilm or somebody like that and say, hey, would you like to buy one of these? Because I have a feeling you might sell several. It's just, I don't know.
You're a good point. Kathleen Kennedy is the director of the Indiana Jones movie, right? She's a producer. So, yes. So the first question was?
Could you elaborate more on why they think it was Archimedes that made it?
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So it is still to this day a very tough cookie to crack to model the positions of the planets in space. But imagine back in the day, they believed the Earth was at the center of the universe. So they had to come up with some interesting formulas to simulate or emulate what your eyes were actually seeing in the night sky. So it takes some serious mathematical skills and manual labor skills. Archimedes happens to be the guy, the first name that popped to mind as to who could have created it. So we know it was found in 1901 at the bottom of the ocean. They carbon dated it, and it brings us to minus 85, minus 150 BC. Well, that's way after Archimedes was dead. So, but he could have spent 20 years building it, kind of thing, and eventually give it to or sell it to the person who commissioned him, and then pass away, and then later the ship falls to the bottom of the ocean, right? So it is possible, and I think personally it is probable. It is totally up his alley. It's like, you know, you see something amazing from the Da Vinci era. It's not easy to believe that helicopter or that device was built by him, because he's got drawings and he's worked on that, and he's that mind, right? So we would naturally attribute, you know, something found in his lifetime to him, kind of thing. So,
How did you finish the rest of the gears? I know what they found is partial.
right, yes. So there's well, we really live on the shoulder of giants, right? Yeah, we really stand on the shoulders of giants, because all of that got figured out in the last 20, 30 years, kind of thing. So they used a laser tomography machine to examine this fragment. Okay, the cool story about this is that machine is made in England. Okay, is the size of the stage with the table and everything, right? It's basically all of this here, and the fragment is this size, right? What do you think they did? They brought the fragment to the machine, or they brought the machine to the fragment, right? So the fragment's in Greece in a museum, and the machine, the laser tomography machine, is in England. So they flew that machine on a special cargo, took a week to set it up in Greece, so they could examine this. And when they did, then they were able to go layer by layer, pixel by pixel, going down and see the gears that are in here. There's still only 30, 40 some gears in here, as opposed to the 52 total gears. And with the other fragments, there was this is the bigger fragment, the other fragment was smaller. And so not only now they see the gears, they see how many teeth, they also see some inscription in Greek, ancient Greek, of course, that is a user manual that basically tells them what to do and how it's used and what it does, and talks about the gear ratios and so on. So it's like, boom, right? And immediately the research from Mr. Freed and Mr. Jones, who's a Canadian, by the way, immediately moved forward at a much bigger rate of speed and was able to bring them. And then they documented that online, so found it, and then we used as much as that information as we could. Of course, we had to come up with our own teeth profile. We had to figure out exactly what size would be ideal. There's some variation. This is not a perfect replica. This is not what Archimedes made. This is a modern day. You know, we got bearings in there, right? It's our own version.
And of course, the goal is for other people to take a look at this and try to build their own, and do their own interpretation, do their own version.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Their own take, or use this one to study and figure out more of what it's all about. So I found out with the Enigma, right? This is useless. There's more encryption in your phone today. There's a free app, right? And it's expensive, right? But some people still prefer to have one in their hands and touch it. The DSKY, there's a free app for that. Unless you have a Saturn V that you need somewhere else, it's useless. But people want to have that contact and manipulate it. So
a trophy.
Yeah, and it's used for training purposes. All three of these, I'm shipping them to schools or museum, and they're used for training. So, okay.
Anything else?
Yeah. Please come up front and have yourself a keychain.
How long did it take you on the others to hit the 20K?
So on Enigma, On Enigma, I want to say I hit my 20K on day 7 or 8 kind of thing, because on day 3 I was Kickstarter project of the day, front page of the internet kind of thing. And that was wonderful. And there was already a following from CNET and Boing Boing and all these. On the DSKY, the goal was 30, and I want to say by day 6 or 7 also. That first week kind of thing. And the Smithsonian published an article about the RDSKY as one of the 50 gifts that you can buy yourself for the 50th anniversary kind of thing.
Have they wanted one in their museum or anything like that? I would imagine they would.
Not in the Smithsonian Museum, but I have it in the Air and Space North Carolina Museum.
You still make all 3 of these, right?
Absolutely, yes, that's what I do. That's my job full time.
Last time he was here, he brought one and he sold it before the end of the show.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I had to let go before the end of the show. Yeah. There is, I know of 3 Apollo-related movies that feature my DSKY.
Oh, really? They used it as a prop?
Lower budget movies.
But they used it as a prop?
But they use it as a prop. One is actually pretty good, if I can remember the name. It's it uses front and center my DSKY kind of thing. So it's fun to see that.
Just find out randomly while you were watching the movie, or did they contact you?
They contact me.
Oh,
They contact me.
good.
We don't really want to buy. Can we use one? Da da da.
Yeah.
You know, or some big flat out. They buy it,
Sure.
kind of thing. But
Should you get credit in the film?
yeah, I said that's all I want in return is S&T GeoTronics.
Can you remember the names of them?
Yes, I do. Not at this second, but yes, so yeah, it will get back.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just,
We'll come
I
back.
want to watch them.
I think the T-shirt's awesome. Is that part of one of your Kickstarter packages? or-
So this one, no, I wanted to do one,
Yeah.
right? We did one for the Enigma, and it wasn't worth my time and effort. So I wanted to do a T-shirt to make it available for the Kickstarter because it's an easy reward.
Yeah.
But there's already a variety out there. So I said, I don't need to enter this market. There's already competition. Talking of competition, you understand, I'm the only game in town if you want a replica of an Enigma. I'm essentially the only game in town if you want a replica of the DSKY.
Right.
I'm the only game in town if you want a replica, a complete replica that's fully working of the Antikythera.
Yeah.
And so exclusivity kind of thing makes it...
It doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck. It's very cool. And eventually people just found out, right, through sharing and posting, and they're happy, and they put it on their Twitter, and then it's on a magazine on the line, and then and it,
Right.
you know,
Like
and Google and the Google algorithms, right, just push me to the top.
Yeah.
So
We're in a very passionate hobby, basically. I mean, the people that love this stuff really, really love
yeah,
it. So that's
exactly.
awesome,
But I remember when we talked to
Exactly.
you, you were like, you started this, I'll just make a few.
Yeah.
And now it's turning into...
I never expected at
Yeah.
all. It changed my career, right? I was supposed to continue installing my internets in hotels for years. And no, thank you. I'd rather do this in my pajama next to my dog. And, right? So,
Does your wife appreciate that?
yes, about my wife. She told me, you're wasting your time. Nobody, and she's been wanting to tell me about this and that. And I say, and I bring her back to, remember, Jose, when you said that nobody would ever care about this thing?
Yeah.
So,
That's maybe the greatest reward.
yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah,
told you so.
absolutely.
Right, exactly.
Please take, those are keychains for.
You've got 5 backers, and now you're at 2,600.
I guess it's
Okay.
Wow.
All right. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one. Yeah.
How many prototypes did you do on this?
Okay, so prototypes are meant to be partial, right?
Right, yeah,
So
yeah.
they're not full, complete. So we have a total of 7 prototypes and 1 production unit. And this is a prototype This is the release candidate for the full Monty, and it's the third full Monty that we built. And then the other four are, so I guess it's three of each. Three up front and three full Monty.
Now, what's the wear and tear on these? How do you think?
Good question. Yeah, it's the Delrin. The Delrin should last for a long, long time. The bearing will. The brass rod will stay straight. But all in all, I don't know how many. It's not been tested. It just, first time they come out of the house, kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's a good question.
It's time to put a motor on it. Just let it run and see it.
So stretch goal in the campaign.
Oh, is it?
An Arduino with a display and a few buttons that turns the crank on your behalf.
Okay.
Because we're open source, we're Arduino in everything we do, and now this is a stepchild that doesn't have his own Arduino, right?
I knew you'd like this product, huh? He's a big fan.
And our ultimate stretch goal, if and when we reach $80,000, we're going to make them with solid brass gears.
I'll say it's all brass one, okay.
Solid brass gear. But for that, it requires tooling,
Yeah.
and we can't commit to making a solid brass gear without buying the tool. So.
Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing this. Thank you for starting it with us. That's kind of a cool thing.
Thank you, Earl, for allowing me
No,
to have this
great
this
idea.
stage. Okay.
And the whole weekend, when I said this was going to be cool, and I was like, I'm excited about this. I wait to see what your interpretation of it was and how it was going to work. That's wild.
No, somebody did. Somebody bought my kit and retrofitted it with
it's true.
rotary dials. So.
He's a fast forward. When you printed out the gears, what were the issues
Look at
that
the
you were
moon
finding?
changes. He had a
when you
little
printed them out?
white, black,
They
so you
weren't
get
to the
an
right
idea.
tolerance? Or
So first of all,
Not number of teeth.
these are the printed gears that we use in there, right? The ones that we have. So this has to be 3D printed, okay? And because of the way the shape, right? And we started by using PLA for printing them. Big mistake. PLA in Georgia will warp